Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 149. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has liked, shared, commented, has continued to support the show and spread the word. All your support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. I also want to take this time to thank our sponsors. Samson Equipment has been providing uncompromising quality for over 40 years. Samson products are long-lasting and made of the highest quality equipment on the market. Each project is built from the ground up with the ability to customize every need. The team at Samson focuses on developing the highest quality relationships with their customers, in addition to providing them unparalleled quality in every piece of equipment bearing the Samson name. Learn more about Samson's professional weight room solutions and the Samson standard at samsonequipment.com. Also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. Trusted since 2012, Cerberus is making the best strongman, powerlifting, and strength sports equipment and accessories, ensuring the ultimate competitive edge. Every one of their products is tried, tested, and proven by top-level athletes worldwide. So whether it's competing on the big stage at World's Strongest Man or training at home in the gym, Cerberus Strength equipment is reliable, durable, and of course, strong enough to handle all your training goals and needs. If you're in the market for the highest quality strength conditioning gear and equipment, be sure to check out CerberusStrength.com and use promo code STRENGTH_game to save on your next order. Also want to thank our sponsors, Sport Kilt. Born in Scotland and stitched in America, Sport Kilt offers the highest quality custom kilts and accessories. Every Sport Kilt is made in the USA, a machine washable polyester blend fabric, offering an alternative to the traditional heavy wool kilt. Sport Kilt products are made for people who like to be active and make a statement while they train, compete, play, and adventure. Their kilts are designed for comfort, freedom, and style, made for all the brave ways you move. Check out the No Pants All Glory selection of kilts and shop the best collection of high-quality, American-made sport kilts and accessories at sportkilt.com and use promo code TSG to receive an extra 10% off your next order. And in this week's episode, I am joined by Michael Stegemoeller. Michael is the assistant strength and conditioning coach at the University of Pittsburgh. Joining Pitt in spring 2025, Stegemoeller worked directly with the Panthers women's lacrosse and swimming and dive programs. He previously worked in a similar role at the University of Cincinnati, where he was responsible for training for the women's lacrosse, swimming and diving, and track and fields, sprint and hurdle groups since summer 2022. Stegemoeller began his coaching career as a performance specialist at Michael Johnson Performance from 2017 to 2019 after beginning as an intern. From there, he moved to the collegiate ranks, first interning at the University of Houston in 2019, followed by serving as a graduate assistant coach at the University of Southern Mississippi from 2020 to 2021. He then moved on to Texas A&M University, where from 2021 to 2022, he was a professional paid intern in their sports performance department prior to joining the Bearcats at the University of Cincinnati in 2022, where he was quickly promoted from his fellow position to a full-time assistant sports performance coach the same year. Stegemoeller is active himself in the weight room and trains 5 to 6 times per week while balancing the rigors of a collegiate coaching schedule. He's an avid lifter and enjoys spending time outside when he's not training in the weight room. He's competed in a half marathon and the deadlift party at Summer Strong 18 and continues to train as hard as he can for as long as he can. Like I said, I'm excited to have him on the show today. So with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Michael Stegemoeller. What's going on, everybody? Today we've got Coach Michael Stegemoeller on the show. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm good. I'm excited to get you on. We kind of chop it up a little bit before we got going. Kind of tail end for a new job, like your first year. So this is kind of the first full year from fall on, now being over there at Pitt with the strength and conditioning staff. So I know we're going to chop it up, kind of get into some of the teams you're working with a new program, like relatively new program, and then just kind of your career path and everything you've done coaching wise. But before we kind of get into all that stuff, I want to kind of take it back and figure out how you got involved in the strength game, lifting, and everything before you kind of got involved in coaching. So, kind of take us back to how all that started for you.
Yeah. Um, so I grew up playing soccer. So soccer player, South and was not muscle bound by any way, shape, or form, and just grew up your classic like 150 to 70 pound soccer player. And going up through high school, definitely had some guys when I was on the JV team looking up to the varsity guys. There were a couple just freaking jacked dudes on the team that were really good at soccer and also very fast. And I was neither of those things. And I was like, uh, I'd asked him one day, I was like, what do I have to do to come close to being better in the same ways that you are on the field and off the field? And so a couple of them took me to the gym and we started training, saw it start to pay off. Like had a vein pop up in my arms after I got good at pull-ups, it got a little faster. And definitely noticed it on the field too. And then just kind of got hooked and put on some weight, kept training, and then kind of decided to I guess I learned that I could study it in college when I got to Texas A&M as a student. And so that's kind of how I got into lifting. And then the strength game on the coaching side of things, I just kind of grew to love training and always had loved sports. And so along the way, kind of into my last semester at him as a student, learned that it was possible to kind of pair those things and try to make a living out of it. And kind of led me to my first internship and coaching experience, which was at a private facility at Michael Johnson Performance in McKinney, Texas, north of Dallas. Um, from there, I kind of just never really looked back. Got to work with some pro athletes as an intern. Obviously, I wasn't programming for them, but assisting in professional athlete development, which I thought was so cool. And then most of my time was with youth athletes and running some Olympic development soccer programs that we had a partnership with, and just kind of got my feet wet with that for about 5 months as an intern. And then uh, they asked for me to stick around. So I stuck around as a part-time coach for about a year and a half there. Got certified, and then the rest is kind of just gone from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's always kind of a grab pile too when you get to go to the private sector because it's all based off of reputation and I know like Michael Johnson, like Performance Center always has like a lot of professional guys too. So it's cool to see though you got some team aspect, but you got a lot of high level individuals and I mean even if you're not programming like right off the rip with them, you get to see how someone thinks and kind of picks their brain and see like the differences between high level athletes, youth athletes, just because everybody is coming at maybe different times of the day or is crossing paths when they're in the training center. And then you can see how those coaches interact with them differently and start to kind of shape that. Because once you get to collegiate level or high school or whatever, whatever you kind of end up working with, it's almost like frozen in time where you're only working with this age group or this sport and everything. And it's fun in those private settings to be able to see everything before you kind of specialize a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's part of where I consider myself to be so freaking lucky to have been able to be there. The guys from the top down that ran the place are unbelievable coaches like Lance Walker and Brian McCall. They're unbelievably smart coaches. And while I was there, I mean, that was like the definition of like premier service, the way they interacted and took care of the athletes on a daily basis, and the way you got to see how they structured and took care of those guys. It was I mean, from NFL guys to MLB to track stars, it was like that's the way things should be done. If you walked in that building and watched it happen from from the pros down to the youth kids. So yeah, this it was definitely a good place to be.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. I know we'll kind of touch on too from there because you made the jump like to collegiate and you've been in collegiate like ever since. But before we kind of do that, like going back to a little bit of your training and everything too, like you found a niche for it, you wanted to get involved in coaching and you went into that private setting. You're seeing so many different programs and you get involved in it like when you're playing in high school, like from teammates and stuff. What's your program like? How's your programming and training look now that high school is wrapped up and you're in that setting? Like, are you trying to do what the pros are doing? You just kind of following what the coaches are doing? Like, there's so many things going on. Like, what do you pick from to kind of stay involved in training?
Are you speaking like for myself?
Yeah, for yourself, because like you're seeing everything happen, and I don't maybe speaking for myself, when I got involved, as soon as there was a coach that I was trying to learn from, like I just wanted to do
Yeah.
everything they did, and I wanted to do what the athletes were doing and kind of figure out how this realm, this career works. So that's how I kind of just made my program, and it was terrible, just throwing everything that I could on a piece of paper and overtraining and doing dumb stuff. And it wasn't really a program. It was just what was cool that day.
No, 100%. And I feel like if you're a strength coach that has never felt like you've overtrained yourself, then I don't think you've truly like gone down enough rabbit holes to to try to figure out how stuff works. But I was definitely the same way, like training myself all the way through college until I ended up in that internship at a sports performance facility. It was like straight up out of Men's Health magazine and bodybuilding.com. And I'm not afraid to say it because it's all I knew. I had no idea. Like, I didn't lift weights in high school. It wasn't a part of the soccer program. It was pretty much like, oh, I guess the football guy, my friends that play football and play baseball are gonna like lift a few times at school during the week, and then I'm just gonna go keep running. So, but it was the same for me when I got to MJP in Dallas. It was like I've never seen any of this stuff before. And clearly, it works for these guys, and they're able to do certain athletic feats that I'm not able to. So we're gonna go down that road and put it in my own training, whether it's like going through a linear sprint series just before a lift or like a change of direction day type of thing before a lift. I put myself through the ringer as I was learning these certain things I had no idea about. And it's kind of just snowballed from there, going down into like a powerlifting rabbit hole or a CrossFit kind of thing. So it's definitely my training over the years for myself has evolved dramatically and just continue to add elements of things that I really enjoy and things that I know are good for me and things that um, I don't know might make me more reputable as a strength coach because people will listen to you if you have a bigger neck, right? So things like that. Yeah, that's kind of how it's been.
Yeah, it's kind of an easy kind of buy-in when you see that too. Like if you're kind of walking the walk a little bit, it starts the
Exactly.
conversation. People, I mean, people are visual too, especially like athletes. So if they see their coaches pretty well put together, even if they're training for something slightly different, like most athletes understand that you're not playing their sport and you might not have even played the sport, but if you look athletic, if you look like you're in shape, it's a little bit easier to kind of build that buy-in like right off the get-go. So, hey, right now, is there any kind of rabbit hole or anything that really is kind of sparked your interest that you're kind of taking your own training towards? Or is it kind of fluctuate a little bit with the seasons? Like, because we kind of know that collegiate coaching season can be pretty hectic in based off what sports you're working with or just kind of the environment you're around.
Yeah, I think the most recent rabbit hole has been uh, trying to get really good at. I've been fairly like better than average, I would say, at Olympic lifting, but definitely nowhere near amazing. So definitely figuring out, or I guess fine tuning like clean and jerk technique and snatching as well. that's kind of the biggest rabbit hole that I've been going down. And I've for like kind of on and off, mostly on now. I've been working out with, or I guess running the same training program as the football guys from Cincinnati, who the last few years we've shared a weight room, and they just moved out into their own building. And obviously, I left Cincinnati for Pittsburgh, but training on their program, which is kind of 3 days a week, kind of a tier system based program. Every day we'll do something explosive, whether it's kind of power cleans, hang cleans, or some snatch variation, some sprinting as well, and then definitely hammer the squat, bench, and deadlift pretty heavy, and then tail off into some accessories. But I think kind of beyond that as well has been the incorporation of AMRAPs, like as many rounds as possible, and EMOMs and kind of partner workouts. When I was at Cincinnati, we did more of that. Hopefully, we'll bring that back at some point in the future, but kind of a big lift followed with a massive work capacity circuit at the end where it was like you and a partner, we're going to total 200 calories on the bike, and whatever time we have left after that, kind of on like a 15-minute running clock, we'll try to get as many sandbag cleans in as possible. Or it'll be some kind of like walking lunge to barbell thruster to farmer carry, kind of how many rounds can you get in 10 minutes? So kind of like CrossFit-y, strongman-y, work capacity based work has definitely been one that's been fun to go down the last year or so with those guys.
Yeah, that's great. It's those are kind of cool too, like because I need to start going back to the point where I'm outsourcing my program, and it's always been a pain sometimes, like trying to convey what my schedule looks like with work, or how, like, when I train and things like that. And you got to find the time to do it. And it makes it a little bit easier, I think, too, when you got either someone else program it for you because you feel like you're being held accountable and you don't want to let that person down, and like you don't have to worry about the programming anymore. But also, like, doing that work capacity stuff, you can do it with a group and you can be competitive, and you kind of give yourself like time constraints or a little bit something to shoot for, and be competitive. So those are all great kind of things to do, because I think a lot of times coaches are either so piss poor tired, or they're just like, you're around training all the time, you're in the weight room all the time. It's easy to kind of like maybe get rid of some of the training and just do the easiest thing, which is like squat, bench, deadlift, and maybe like take 15-minute rests in between. It's
Yeah,
it's hard to get away from that stuff sometimes, or not get bothered during a lift. I'll say that too.
exactly. And that's part of it is one, I love like Brandon Garcia, the football strength coach from Cincinnati, unreal jack of all trades when it comes to all aspects of training and coaching, in my opinion. This guy, I mean, a part of it is one, so you don't get interrupted, do it early. And sometimes, like most of the time, way earlier than you'd really want to. Like nobody wants to wake up at like 3:45 or 4 o'clock to get to the gym, like be fully ready to go by like 4:30, 4:45. But if it means you can lift without getting interrupted, or lift before you've coached for X number of hours and now your legs are trashed and your knees are tight, there's that. And then also, excuse me, training in a group, there's just the community, like I don't want to say like shared suffering aspect to it, but you know that there's everyone else in the room is, like, relatively speaking, going just as hard as you are every day, doing the same stuff. You're just going through it together. And I think that is an underrated aspect of, or underrated aspect slash maybe underused training implement, just train with other people.
Yeah, I mean, we in the college setting, in a lot of settings, you're training everybody in that group atmosphere, and in the team atmosphere, position groups, whatever it is. It's crazy to go from that, and like you're preaching all these things as a coach, and then you go in and you put your headphones in and you go lift by yourself. And I mean, it happens, and like those athletes are going to do stuff on their own, and you got to train on your own. But it's nice to at least be able to sprinkle that in and kind of remember what it feels like to be part of a team because I think most coaches grew up playing a team sport at some point. And even if you were a wrestler or a swimmer or you played tennis or another sport that has a lot of individual aspects to it, like there still is a lot of different character traits that come from playing a team sport. And hopefully you weren't someone that specialized so early on, like in your youth career, that you got the opportunity to play one of those sports before you just chose an individual one.
Yeah. I feel like I feel like as well, I don't know about you, but I feel like training, like my own training influences my coaching too. It's like I will finish a morning lift and be fired up for whatever's next, whether it's my dive lift, like 6:30 dive lift, or if it's going out to warm up lacrosse, to where I feel like I'm just on fire, I'm on one, and then in the best ways possible, that feeds the girls or guys that I get to work with next. That just they kind of feed off of it, and they feel like this isn't just another day for them to kind of wake up early and get to training. So um, I think that's just another aspect of it to it as well.
No, I'd agree. That's no one wants to listen to someone that's not excited about what they do or isn't kind of fired up about the training session because you can feel that energy too. And if they're coming in and they're maybe not having the best day or they're pretty sore, they've got a lot on their plate, like the weight room and like that training atmosphere is supposed to be something that they can either escape from or latch onto or I mean, it's supposed to be kind of what they need, and that's where the coach is supposed to kind of dial that stuff in and be able to regulate the temperature of the room a little bit and be that thermostat where they're not having a good day and you're fired up. That might change their whole mindset for what that training session looks like. And you'd start doing that on a consistent basis over time, and that's when you're going to start seeing a lot more changes. And those are one of the things we can't really quantify, just like what culture looks like and what a positive, like well done training atmosphere looks like. But when you're getting the feedback from them and you're kind of seeing that energy on their faces or performance based too within the training session, like you can kind of determine that it's successful in some sort of manner.
Yeah, 100%. You got to be an energy giver. I know there's a bunch of analogies for that, but that's what you got to be. Find a
Oh,
way to
for
be that.
sure. For sure. Hey, so kind of switching gears again too, like talking about getting started at MJP, and that was like your initial start within the coaching realm and kind of learning. I know from internship, you kind of went on and became an assistant there for a couple years. And after that, you kind of really made that leap into the college setting and like interning at Houston and then becoming a GA and working at some other places as well as Texas A&M and Cincinnati, and Southern Miss. What kind of made you want to move out of that private setting, having experience there? Like, what was kind of the driving factor that wanted you to get involved in more of a team atmosphere and then get into athletics like that aspect?
Yeah, let's see. So I was at MJP for almost 2 years, and the back half of that, it was the company was going through some things, trying to find partnerships and whatnot, and I was placed on a to kind of manage this partnership where I was going out to the soccer field and nearby where there was a soccer club that had a bunch of high level development academy teams that were just pumping out Division 1 soccer players, and they asked me to be the lead on that. And so it kind of got me involved with the team setting there where it wasn't just like a kid that plays baseball, um, a volleyball player, maybe a football player and a soccer player that come in every 3 weeks and then you never see them again. It got me involved with a team that's all, and I mean, a team dynamic is so much different than just a bunch of kids that don't know each other and we're there because their parents want them to try to get a little faster or just enjoy something other than video games. But got me in the team setting and I was just hooked. I thought it was so cool how, I mean, you get to spend more time with the same people. you get to know them better, you get to see how they operate and what their like true needs are outside of just a sports performance facilities setting. And and that kind of led me to look into the college setting. At the same time, I had a friend that I got my good friend kind of left, and he went into the college world as well from MJP, and he was enjoying it, telling me all about it. So I left after he did and took an internship before going to grad school. But um, anyways, the team setting from working with those soccer teams kind of got me hooked on that, and then I had my sister's friend who was playing volleyball at U of H at the time. Like my parents lived 30 minutes from there. I was like, okay, dang, I should probably just see. We'll see. So I got the contact at U of H, drove down there, talked to them and met them. And this was kind of like late summer of 2019. And then talked to them, moved home from Dallas after a couple of years and spent the semester there, commuted to my internship every day. That's kind of all I did Monday through Friday. And then freaking loved it. I had no idea all of the different things that went into college athletics, like 8 hour periods and 20-hour periods and things like that, and like relationships with athletic training and sports nutrition and all this different stuff. But all I knew was I loved the team setting. I'd really grown to love training athletes, and then it's kind of just snowballed from there into what it is today, or what it's been today.
No, that's great. That's awesome to kind of learn from that first internship, like all the things that you mentioned that maybe aren't necessarily what people envision just a strength coach doing, like stuff that's kind of outside maybe the weight room walls or outside of just working with teams and coaching or blowing a whistle. Like you learn that stuff pretty quick within your first like collegiate stop as an intern. And that's probably pretty eye-opening because I think a lot of people don't maybe necessarily get that the first time they're around. They're like either cleaning or they're heavy curriculum based or they're only working with certain teams. And you get like a false sense of almost being a full-time coach, but you don't get to go to any of those other meetings or learn what's going on or talk to any of the other interns. It's interesting to kind of basically get the whole professional, like the whole landscape. This is what's going on. And you get to decide whether or not this is what you want to do. And yeah, to kind of be fired up and go back and forth commuting all day and still be excited to go to work the next day. Like, I think a lot of coaches kind of miss that feeling of like learning every single day. Like this is new. I want to be involved in this all the time. So you kind of took that and
Yeah.
ran from there. Was grad school kind of the next thing that put you on that path to stay in coaching, or like where did you take it from there after that first internship?
Yeah, it was grad school after the internship, and that started in January of 2020, which that whole year and a half was just a wild one. It was weird though when I got to U of H, I just had no idea. I was just like, okay, if I wanted to get into college athletics, okay, I got to do an internship. All right, so like I'm doing the internship, and I'm asking the coach that I was working under at the time, like, so where do I go from here? She's like, grad school. And I'm like, what's that? And I literally just had no idea. And so I threw my name out into some different applications, or I mean, openings for grad school. Ended up with two interviews and got one offer from Southern Miss, and was like interviewed on a Wednesday, got a call on a Thursday. He was like, let me know by Friday, because the guy at the time was also on the football staff, just the way the department was structured. And they had a game that they were traveling for, I think. And so I went to grad school and was doing grad school, finished, like, we went home for the whole COVID break, went back, finished that in May of 21, and then was like, okay, so like I'm certified, and now I've done grad school, run my own teams, and have a master's degree. So like I can get a job, right? And then I was applying to stuff and just wasn't getting any hits. And then I went to the CSCCA conference, and ironically, the girl that I'd worked for at the University of Houston, she introduced me to her mentor from Texas A&M. Ray Ellsworth, freaking love her. And I from there, I think I kind of like low key had an in-person interview on the spot with Ray. We just like got to know each other. I gave her my resume and then had a Zoom call when I got back to Southern Miss, and then kind of moved at the end of that summer to Texas A&M for the paid internship. And it was a year-long thing, and that was an unbelievable experience getting to learn from all those guys there. And then once that was up, kind of same thing. I was like, damn, what do I do now? It was like I think maybe an August to June position, something like that, and applying to a bunch of spots, caught a couple interviews, no offers, and then had an interview, or I guess with Cincinnati, this opportunity. She was like, "Hey, you should apply for this." Um, don't really know what the sports are. Lacrosse might be one of them. I'm like, I've never watched lacrosse in my life. It's just not a thing in Texas, really, or it wasn't in Houston. So anyways, interviewed there, got the job, and I didn't know the first thing about Cincinnati either, but I knew it was a job, and it's like I'll figure it out. So moved there, and yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, it's such a weird profession. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense. Like, all right, I'm gonna intern. Oh, I've figured out everything I want to do about this. Like, what do I do after the internship is over? It's like, oh, I'll go to grad school. It's like, okay, that's logical. Okay, now I should be able to get a job. No, like you can intern again. Oh, this it's it just makes no sense that that's kind of how it works, but it's it's learning, I think, as many things as possible, like along the way. And no matter
Yeah,
like what your title is, or maybe what teams you work with, or what exactly you're doing, you're just always kind of just adding more tools to your tool belt, just more experience, kind of learning different sports, how to operate before you do get that full-time job. And everybody has such a different kind of path to get to the place they are. It's just all about kind of you'll never, like you said, you'll never be ready for it. You just have to like openly take that opportunity and run with it and see how the cards lie out after that.
yeah, definitely. It was kind of a thing where it's like you get to do certain things as a part of being either an intern strength coach or a GA or a paid intern or a fellow, like whatever it is. But all I knew was with every step that I took in those roles, the the you provide a service and then you get to feel the impact that you make on a daily basis or an annual basis with these kids or a weekly basis, whatever it is, you get to experience that. And all I knew was that I got a feeling that that's what I needed to do. And I just enjoyed it so much that I just like couldn't not do it. So I just tried to find a way to keep doing it. And that's kind of what led me there. So yeah.
I like that. Hey, so I guess kind of looking back a little bit too, it hasn't been, you're not too far removed from kind of starting that first internship and then kind of bouncing around paid internships like GA and just kind of checking all the boxes that it feels like, and the order's always different, but checking all the boxes that it seems like people have to do as a coach to kind of bolster their resume, garner more experience so you can inevitably get your first full-time job and get a little bit more settled into collegiate coaching, especially. Um, but like kind of retroactively, like looking back a little bit, is there anything that you wish you maybe would have helped you prepare a little bit more for like your first job, like full-time job at Cincinnati, or anything that you kind of maybe wish you would have took a different direction um, in order to get to that position, or is like, hey, keep it the same. It's all kind of different for everybody.
Yeah, I think the route that I took to get to that first full-time job, I mean, if I were to say like pick one thing that I wish maybe would have been different, it would have been like, oh, I wish I would, I mean, I could be 2 years, maybe we'll see, like 2 years ahead of where I am now if I would have not gone and done the private sector internship and then job for 2 years. So that's like 2 years of my life that I had to kind of backtrack to get into full-time collegiate strength and conditioning, but in the same breath, it's like I also wouldn't have traded that experience for the world because of the people I got to meet and learn from and what I got to learn from those guys. And it's like it's kind of devil's advocate to what I just said, but that would probably be the one thing I would change. But at the same time, it's like I was there for a reason, and I feel like that's an experience that I don't think that many other strength coaches had or can say that they had. So, but kind of on the other note, I think, um, I don't know. I think in preparing for my first full-time job, I wish that I would have, um, I don't know, some advice or like advice that comes to mind was like, I have more to give and more to gain. So I wish I would have stuck around to do more than what I was assigned to do. At Texas A&M, especially the last stop right before a full-time job, like some certain cards fell there to where I was placed in kind of the main lead for women's tennis and women's golf's training for the year that I was or the school year that I was there. So I really tried to pour a lot into that, and then the swim and dive team as well. And then I was helping out with the track team because it's a massive team, and there were only a few of us that were helping out. But all that being said, I didn't get that much experience with volleyball, not that much experience with softball, not that much experience with soccer while I was there. So I wish I would have put my own interests to the side and just been a part of that and got to learn those sports to a greater degree so I could have some more experience to speak on or pull from if, say, a job opens up down the road where I would be able to say like, oh yeah, I've been there with that group of athletes, know how they operate and what makes them special. So I think that might be the only thing that I would go back and change to try to get myself into a better position here.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think a lot of coaches maybe want a specific sport, and I don't know if like you said, lacrosse you were unfamiliar with coming from Houston, and like I don't know if swim and
Now
dive
I love
was
it, by the way.
yeah, it's fun. Hey, but what's with swim and dive though, was that something that kind of piqued your interest, or was that just kind of again, it just was part of the job, it kind of fell in your lap?
Yeah, exactly. It was just kind of something that just happened on its own. So the coach that I interned for primarily at the University of Houston was responsible for swim and dive, volleyball, and softball. So I was a swim and dive there. Get to Texas A&M, and their strength coach takes a different job, which leaves myself and a couple other paid interns in charge of being the main help until they were hiring a new person for that job. And then we just kind of stuck around because those athletes knew us and we knew kind of how to help them and then help that strength coach in the best way possible. So at that point, I had two different Division I experiences with the swim and dive program, and then in the restructuring of the Cincinnati staff before I got there, they were able to create a new position and then take swim and dive off of one of their current strength coaches' plates. And um, I think maybe because I was an applicant that had experience, that was a sport that they were willing to take off of this guy's plate. But that's just kind of how it's worked. And honestly, like I swam one summer in middle school, and that was while I was playing soccer, and it was just not for me. I can swim, but I would much rather play soccer than swim. But anyways, um, it being such an objective sport, it's so fun to work with because it's like uh, if my pull-up numbers go up and my vertical jump goes up, odds are I should be able to kick way harder, pull way harder, probably going to get faster in the water. Whereas if similar numbers go up for a lacrosse athlete, but for some reason they don't catch the ball or they shoot it right at the goalie, it's like, okay, well, we didn't win the game because that happened, and then that makes it look like our performance training maybe wasn't as good as it could have been. I don't know, something like that. But I just love the objective nature of swim and dive programs as well.
Yeah, those sports make it interesting, like track and field, swim and dive. Um, you can like metrics are so important when it comes to them, like because it's either how far it is, how fast you are, like what the power output is, and it's I guess it's a little bit in that way. It's a little bit more simplified how it's there's less variables that are put into it, and like even if it is a team atmosphere for any of the other sports, um, there's not as many compounding factors that could influence like the game. It's a lot more performance based and objective, like you said. But it's interesting
Yeah.
just to kind of see the job side of it, because this is kind of a trend across collegiate athletics all the time, and it's how coaches and like administrators and like head coaches like decide to like disseminate like sports and like split up sports for their staff. Like, hey, like some people are of the mindset like, hey, if you're really good at field sports, like you're gonna have men's and women's soccer. You already have the same sport, like it's easy, you're the soccer guy now. Or some people have the mindset of, all right, you're bat and ball, so you have baseball and softball, like they don't conflict with each other. Or I know some schools do it where it's like you have an in-season sport in the fall, you have an out-of-season sport in the spring, so they're kind of not conflicting. You can travel, you're out of the season, or it's like, let's say you have a high class, like a deemed like top tier sport, and then you have some sports that don't necessarily require as much training room time, like in the weight room, or just choose not to. And everybody kind of structured it differently, but like you went basically one for one, like with your sports, like from Cincinnati to Pitt. And you said yourself
Mm.
too, it's like you kind of fell into it and you might have been one of the applicants that already had that experience and that gave you a leg up. But in the same token, like you don't stand out maybe for in someone else's eye for baseball because you don't have as much baseball experience. Like
Mhm.
just playing like hypothetical, like which do you think is like more important? Like being able to stand out and having like unique experience like within certain sports and then being able to like use that unique experience with any sport, or like just kind of being the right fit one for one. Like, hey, I've had lacrosse, I can do lacrosse again. I've had softball, I can do softball again. Because I think a lot of coaches or administrators are in one boat. It's like it's got to be one for one. But like I think any good coach sees it and says, if you're a good coach, you're a good coach. Like you can figure out the sport as it goes.
That's a great question. I think I feel like it's sport dependent. A sport like baseball, where there's so many variables that go into how to operate and manage the pitching group and the position group, just from things that I've learned from being on the sideline and watching it happen out of the building at Cincinnati. I feel like that sport in particular, you could argue, like especially at a bigger job or like a bigger school's baseball team, something like that, it would definitely make sense to maybe more highly consider someone with some baseball experience. But I think like you and I both know that as strength coaches, every one of us should probably be a pretty good generalist and like just be able to figure it out. Like I think, humbly speaking, I think anything that I've been given along the way, I've gone down a deep enough hole to try to figure it out and just learn from either my network to try to figure out. Like when I got lacrosse, I called a handful of people that I knew that had lacrosse experience before and just figured it out. Watch the sport, go to practice, all that stuff. Swim and dive as well. Like I've been at two schools working on the swim team, but talking to people at swim meets and connecting with guys there and just learning the sport to a greater degree. Man, I don't know. But if you were to say like, um, and maybe track and field as well, especially like those are very unique sports. Like your 100-meter sprinters probably you could argue probably need something a little different than the 800 group, which need a little something different than the jumpers and all that stuff. So, um, man, I feel like you should be as well rounded as possible to make yourself as marketable as possible. But I think when given the opportunity to try to vouch for yourself as someone that's applying to a job that you or for a sport that you may not have as much experience with, you should definitely be able to speak on how you would approach it to a deeper degree. And I think that could definitely fill some gaps in experience, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And it's always like a conversation I've had with like young coaches and interns coming up too. And it's interesting to kind of see how it was because you kind of had that one for one. And I've had that in spots too where it's like, hey, this position has XYZ sports, like the primary is X, you have X, you're like, we think you're good at this, like the other ones, like they get that coach. It is what it is. Like that's kind of how it works sometimes. But I try to tell a young coach and preach to them as much as possible, like learn from every coach we have on staff, go see what's going on with every single sport, because how their coaches like tactically and technically like construct practice and run things, you can learn a lot from them, but also like develop some relationships because you might be kind of dead set, I want to work with these sports, but that could shift. And I know there's a lot of coaches that like that are closer to how long I've been in it that are football guys. And they're like, I got into basketball. Why did you get into basketball? Because I can be more detailed with them. Also, there's a little bit more money. There's a little bit more structure. I only have to work with these coaches. Or there's some guys on the other spectrum is like, I love basketball, but I don't want to, or football, and I don't want to deal with the uncertainty. I want to be able to like work with Olympic sports and work with a variety of them. So I'm just not, I don't inevitably like hate the sport I love. And there's no way one way to do it. It's just kind of figuring out what best works for you. I'm always of the mindset like the broader you can be in the beginning, the more experience you can get, and then you can kind of make a more educated decision before you start to dwindle down and really start to specialize in the sense of I'm working with these sports a little bit more intensely than I was when I first started my career, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Hey, so how do you kind of differentiate them between those sports? Because women's lacrosse is very new, like at Pittsburgh, and I know there's lacrosse popping up in a lot of places, but like developing a culture with them, kind of taking over from a previous coach that was probably there and kind of learning how they wanted to build that sport and program up? Like, how do you kind of like take that pass off and understand that like they don't really have a deep-rooted history at Pitt at the moment? So you're kind of developing. That's got to be a pretty cool thing, but how do you kind of keep that stuff in check, knowing it's a new program and that like you're just trying to build off the previous year?
Yeah, Aaron did not leave me easy shoes to step into. Um, Obviously, he's an unreal strength coach and did a lot for the team, and everyone loves and respects him. So, he's kind of stepping into a newer program in arguably the hardest conference in college women's lacrosse, the ACC. It's kind of like everything's high stakes when you're playing in the hardest conference. Everything means a little more. So for me, kind of getting going with the team here is just encouraging high levels of competition and output and everything that we do, whether it's in the weight room or on the field. Because everyone around you is going to be just as fast or faster than you were in high school for all the freshmen out there on this team and everywhere across the ACC. Um, there's not going to be that many cakewalk games, so it's kind of trying to get ready for a higher level of competition, a more physical level of competition, and yeah, I think that's just a culture that I'm trying to drive and continue on from what Aaron and the head coach and her staff here have already been doing. So, um, yeah, that's kind of how we're working into it right now.
Yeah, you can't really like fast forward and speed up a culture too. It's still really young in it, and obviously, like you said, the ACC is cutthroat too for lacrosse. So all those teams in there have are the blue bloods. They've been around for the longest period of time. Like they're consistently winning national championships and have gone back to back and at multiple different schools to be successful. So you're hard shoes to fill with a coach that's kind of still there, and it's always kind of a weird thing when they did a really good job and like the players are still like our old coach is right over there. It's a weird feeling to kind of get passed over to someone else, but even more difficult to like build a culture up from essentially nothing. So like, how do you guys or how do you kind of like have conversations with the coaching staff about what training looks like, what the direction of the team and the culture kind of looks like as you're still building it? And then kind of establishing like standards and what really the expectation is for not just training, but for success for the season being such a new program? Or is it like, hey, it's national championship or bust sort of mentality?
Yeah, I mean, the team's coming off, I think the best year that they've had since the program started. And so things that were in place last year are still in place as far as doing, like, they know what it takes to be better than they were before for everyone that's been at the program. And so, um, they had some big wins last year that I think everyone took notes from and learned from, and hopefully continues to carry that, like whatever it took to beat that team is what it's going to take to continue doing that. So that can't change. So I think there's a lot of that in place already. But I think for me stepping in, it's having conversations with coaches. Like last year, they graduated a ton of very athletic people to where like we just ran the yo-yo test. All of those people would have been at the top of that test. They would have scored the highest, but they graduated. So now we have less of that at the top on our team. Something along those lines. So like this year, maybe last year they were so fit that they didn't really have to worry about it. Maybe they could have worked on more like speed work or change of direction stuff. And like gotten away with a little less extra conditioning work because they were already so fit. This year, maybe that's not the case yet. So maybe that means we need to worry a little bit more about fitness, and then once that is secure, then we can contribute a little more time or like spend a little more time elsewhere. So getting to know the strengths of the team right now has been one thing, and then kind of slowly, like you get to a new place, they don't know you, you don't know them, you can't just jump in and be or at least my approach is to not jump in and be 100% of who I am as like a what I like to think is a very vocal leader that's got like a pretty good presence. You got to kind of feel it out and slowly kind of contribute, which, or I guess not contribute, but enforce your standards and what you stand for. So it's kind of a slow cook game as far as creating relationships that with the student athletes that you're working with, that when it comes to being like 100% who you are as a coach, it's not going to rub anyone the wrong way. Like this new guy just comes in and he's like, get back on the line, whatever it is. It's you got to kind of approach it from a more strategic way than that, where it's they get to know you a little bit. You like kind of, and this is my opinion and my approach, how you kind of step in and establish your standards and your kind of understanding of things that may not make sense because they did it this other way for the last 3 years with another guy, and like whatever that might be, progressively become more stern in the way you reinforce things and hold your standards and hold people accountable to hold each other accountable and all of that kind of thing. It's an interesting process. Like being at Cincinnati for the last 3 years, it's kind of been 3 years since I stepped into a new place and kind of had to go through that. So it's interesting. I wouldn't say it's hard, but it's just interesting going back through that again for me. So
Oh yeah, it's a different process, like starting from kind of square one and trying to, like you said, establish like your standards and figure out what the expectations are for the staff, like get to know them, let them get to know you, and you can't really come in there guns a blazing because like you don't know what was happening before. Like luckily you do have like Aaron to be able to kind of like pick his brain a little bit of like what worked, what didn't work so well, and still make it your own. You kind of have like a little bit of cheat code to like maybe bypass some of the things that might not work because he got to that as a sticking point. But yeah, like slow playing it, like building relationships with the team, with the staff, so that they better understand like how you coach, like what the expectations are for them as players, but also the ones that you want them to expect you to carry out day to day. And that's where I think a lot of coaches forget that it's a two-way street with it. Like you can't just demand that they respect you as a coach and then you not hold up your end of the bargain. It's got to make sure that they understand that like you're doing your best as a coach and you're demanding the best of them as an athlete, then they can do the same in return. Otherwise, like, why would you listen to a coach that's not willing to kind of put in that same effort and the same commitment that you're asking of them to do?
yeah, definitely.
It's definitely a different kind of thing, but it's cool to kind of hear like your take on it too, like understanding how many players that you lost and like how many key players or leaders or maybe like stronger individuals in some aspects. And by some of your testing and assessment and just kind of understanding how they are playing in practice, like you're tailoring the training to them. And that's a difference between like a coach that ends up doing like 1 year, 20 times, you just kind of regurgitate the same program versus really assessing and measuring what's going on and making sure the program fits for the players and the current team that you have, which is, like you said, maybe a little bit different than what it was the previous year. So now you got to make sure that you're kind of hitting the qualities that they need to work on to improve on. And maybe you just need to touch on some of those strengths because there's another pressing factor that needs to be addressed right now. But definitely a cool thing. Like your experience kind of working with a newer team and developing something like that. A lot of coaches will never get to go through their whole career and have that opportunity. So definitely want to kind of take advantage of and really build kind of a legacy with that team and just ride it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not like just because a bunch of really talented people graduated and left the program that the sport changed. So like philosophies and methods of training, whether it was in the weight room or on the field, that I believe makes sense for a women's lacrosse team or any athlete, really, if you want to just go down that rabbit hole. But it's not like everything changed. So at its core, probably 85 or more percent of the system, you could say, that I've run for women's lacrosse and developed over the last few years. And not to say that it's bulletproof in any way, but the majority has stayed the same. It's just figuring out what this particular team is going to have like bigger gaps to fill with. So
I like that. Hey, so coming from like my experience, I only worked swim and dive like very briefly at like a couple spots and like mostly observing, not really like overseeing them too much. I think other than like one of the schools I was at. So, and I never worked at it at a place where it was probably as in depth as it is at your level with ACC and having actual swim and dive team and multiple events, guys and girls, like everything. Like I mean, I don't even know how many on your roster when you look back at it, but it's got to feel like a mini football team as many people are on it. Hey, but so how do you kind of address and train them like is it a little bit more of like what the events are? Like if they're a multi-event kind of like swimmer or diver, like maybe ability groups, or if they're redshirting, like how do you kind of differentiate a little bit of their training, or is it because they're as often in the pool and as often that they're doing their individual sport, it's a little bit more general, like just like 80% of the time.
Yeah, I would argue that 80% of the time it is very general. At Cincinnati, um, each year I got I guess I gave a little bit more of a specific tailor with certain things to different event groups. Like the breaststroke group on the swim team um, uses their adductors way more than the other three groups. So gave them a little more work for the groin, whether it was ISOs or actual like eccentric or concentric type movements to hopefully make their kick stronger. Because what makes a dolphin kick using like the hamstrings and the hip flexors and the quads and the lower back, what makes that kick work really well is not necessarily going to help a breaststroker's kick. And then vice versa, if I train the groin really hard for someone that keeps their legs together for their entire race, you could argue that's not necessarily going to help them in the pool, but like, okay, maybe it makes their hips healthier and makes their knees hurt less every now and then or something like that. But so like I'll throw them a bone when it comes to something like that. And maybe with some pulling variations or pressing variations, you've got breaststroke and fly that both of their arms are in sync the entire time versus free and backstroke. They're moving one limb at a time. So we might do one more single arm rowing variations or like a piston row kind of thing, or a dumbbell bench press as well, where or even like a single arm, like a straight arm lat pull down versus a double arm straight arm lat pull down. Is there 100% transfer to the water? Maybe it's not 100% transferred, but when explained to the athletes, I do know that in the last 3 years, they've gotten excited about it. Like, oh yeah, this is for the fly group. Hell yeah. Or like, okay, this is for the breaststroke. Like, hell yeah, guys. So there's certain things in training like that. And then um, when it comes to like the distance group, for the most part, it stayed the same. Over the summer, I experimented a little bit with strength circuits, like on a clock, where if everyone else was doing some like pretty heavy work, we've got like 80% on the trap bar or 80% loaded up on squat or something around that for some pull up weight or bench press. And it was, you're going to do like 2 or 3 reps every minute on the minute and rotate through these exercises. Or if it was like higher volume, it was like 75-ish%. Like every 3 minutes, I need you to do 5 squats, like front squats, 5 pull-ups, and then 5 reps on bench press or something like that. So, um, experimenting more with that, that's going to go through. I've been kind of collaborating with our head swim coach to see how he feels about some things like that. And we've made some good progress on our training philosophy. So, at its core, though, the majority is the same. Like everyone's front squatting right now, everyone's hang cleaning right now, everyone's bench pressing and doing eccentric chin ups. But when we really get into the nitty gritty of like late fall and then early spring, we'll definitely start to tailor things a little bit separately for those groups.
Okay. No, that's cool to hear. It's interesting to kind of see what your philosophy looks like, and obviously like get to know that sport coach and the athletes and figure out what what's kind of the best approach for them. And I mean, obviously you kind of developed that over the last couple of years, like from taking that experience from Cincinnati and then kind of seeing what this coach allows you to do and kind of how you're allowed to kind of work within his system. But it's cool to kind of hear a little bit of the differences that like start to tailor off a little bit and spin off from what the main bulk of the program looks like when it gets closer to competitive season. And like it's awesome to hear like some of the athletes like start to build a little bit of buy-in and like get excited about movements when you don't even have to say like, hey, this is for this stroke movement. Like they already see it. and they kind of build that buy-in. And I know there's a couple sports when it comes like on the Olympic side. I don't know if it's notorious that it's like almost, hey, like training is just be in the pool more, or hey, just get on the track more. Hey, just throw more shot put, like just get more shots up. Like that's what's going to get you better at your sport. Like just do your sport. It's going to get better to it, or like get as close as you can to a tie-in away from like tying a band to a tennis racket or like just crazy overspeed drills with a golf swing, whatever it is. But
Yeah.
some of those sports, like in a way, like are kind of allergic to the weight room, or they don't see the tie-in, or just don't want to do it. In your experience, like, have you come across like maybe individual athletes or like teams or certain years where that's been kind of the case? And then like, how are you able to do more things or try to persuade or encourage them to like embrace the training so they get that same sort of like excitement about a single arm lat pull down or like a crossbody row, and they're like, hey, this is kind of tailored for me and my sport to get better. Like I'm more invested in the program because it feels like it's for me and my sport.
Yeah, I would probably say that I haven't come across entire teams that have been that way, but more so maybe some individuals within the teams every now and then that maybe don't understand why they have to be in the weight room, or they have had weight room experiences before they just didn't like, and now they just don't want to be there. But I think the easiest thing to do is like learn their sport and what makes athletes in their sports special, and then start to speak that language to them. And then, in my experience, if you do that well, you're like 70% of the way there. It might like 30% might not even matter what's on your program. They're just going to try hard because you know something about what should make them better. And then another part of that is like just showing them how much you like truly care, which can come from just showing up to practice and like talking with them, and like they see how you interact with their coaches. They see that everyone's on the same page, and it's like, okay, maybe I'm actually a part of something that is coordinated and specialized with my best interest in mind as a swimmer or a lacrosse player. And okay, maybe I should listen to this guy and try a little harder because everyone's got it. So I think like a combination of those things and providing like a competitive environment. Like people love winning and hate losing, or like some people love winning more than they hate losing, or vice versa. But uh, I think the more times you can provide a competitive environment can be a way to get around some neglect to wanting to train in the weight room, or I guess instill the importance of training with the teams. And um, definitely trying to explain how improving, if you can improve your pull-ups, odds are you should be able to take a stroke off of one of your races in the water. If we can lunge or squat a little more and maybe it makes your vertical jump go up a little bit, like odds are we're probably going to make you a little faster on the field. If not that, hopefully you're healthier from like the waist down, things like that. And I guess definitely whenever your head coach starts to have your back in front of the team. Like one instance was we were doing kind of at Cincinnati. We had two running days or conditioning days in the week, and earlier in the week we did our like more anaerobic based work where it was really hard efforts with a little bit more rest. And I implemented some change of direction drills that I got from Matt Van Dyke, and one of them was like a shuffle transitioned into like an open 45-degree sprint, and then followed back with a shuffle and a sprint. And like when the session was over, the head coach was like, essentially, the better we can get at that, just like defenders, think about how that works with you covering the zone or like covering the 8 meter space on defense, like checking in and out, trying to cover a cutter coming in versus someone down low. And when a coach can speak to what you're doing like that in front of the athletes, And then the athletes kind of like look at you like, oh shit, like, okay, maybe that was fire. Maybe that is going to make us a little better. Then, then in my opinion, that's when people just start eating out of your hand and they'll do anything you ask. So yeah, that's a long-winded answer to that question.
No, it was worth it. I mean, that's like ultimate validation right there that it's like, hey, it's almost like you can
Yeah.
kind of shrug and be like, see, like coach kind of knows what he's talking about. I bet like this is exactly what we're trying to do. And there's a tie into your sport. And there's a lot. I think athletes see that stuff too and realize that you're not just throwing stuff on a piece of paper or kind of dictating and telling them what to do. Like there's a purpose behind it, and it's more than just explaining why. Because, like you said, we could go there and probably sit down with the athletes, and they can ask as many questions that they want, and we could like sell it to them, and we could explain to them. But how much more beneficial and impactful is it when you're doing the drill? They've already done it and a coach comes up and then ties it directly into the sport with their language, and it's not coming from you. You didn't premeditate it. You didn't tell the coach. You didn't pay him off to like do it. It's just coming natural. Like you said, they're eating out of your hand at that point.
Yep.
Hey, so I thought about this a little bit when you're talking, especially about swimming and stuff too. And again, this is probably one that like there's no real answer to it, but I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts on it are. Because like we talked about track and swim are so objective based and like they're metric driven and they're fun in the sense where you can show that if you're getting stronger, more powerful, quicker, more agile, like in the weight room, theoretically you should be doing the same thing and you can check if they're actually happening like on the clock, like on the distance that they're running, all these sorts of things. Um, in your opinion, like when you talked about kind of creating like that culture and that training atmosphere in the weight room with especially like swim, is it kind of overkill, do you think, to like make things a little bit too metric driven and objective in the weight room? Because a lot of times, like if you're having them shoot for a certain number or improvement, like they're already like, as soon as the race is over, they're looking up at the clock to see what their time is. Like they immediately like they want to know that what they did is they're correlating it with good or bad with what happens on that scoreboard and what their time is for their lane. Is it too much to like always be focused on that? So like be in the weight room and again, you're looking for feedback or you're looking for a number. Is there a time and season where like, hey, we're just trying to get better? Like we don't need to really focus on everything at this point. Like movement efficiency is great, like being able to like hold something isometrically longer is great too. Like there's more than just a stopwatch. Or like is it already built into their program so you kind of just run with it?
Yeah, it's funny, especially with that group of athletes, because I've been at numerous swim meets at this point and seen post-race emotion where there are people that are very, I think some of the best swimmers that I've worked with recently were just so process driven that like good or bad time, relatively speaking, like didn't really affect them. It's just like, okay, like I know I messed up that wall down there and that's or that turn and that's why that swim sucked. And there's other people that are like, well, I feel like I did everything right and that time wasn't what it should have been. And then they're in their feels now for an extended period of time, don't want to talk to anybody. So I feel like part of that comes down to knowing the individuals. Like maybe I won't put as much pressure on someone that doesn't respond very well to that because it's going to ruin the rest of their day if it's not what they expected. Like a vertical jump, like if we test the force plates, if we just get a jump in twice a week and one of those days the jump's way down for some reason, like visibly the rest of the lift or like for a good part of it, like something is wrong and it's just not worth it. But other people are driven by that, so it fires them up and they get super competitive. So I think while I wouldn't want to get lost in and being obsessed with objective feedback immediately, I don't know, it is important. I don't think you need to track every single thing, but I think there are things worth tracking that you should. Um, you can make competitive without knowing like this doesn't define me on a daily basis, if that makes sense.
No, that does. It's an interesting concept, but I think you said it well. Just understanding that individuals are going to react differently. It's not really just the sport. And you're always when you train too, like a lot of times in a team atmosphere too, the majority of your training is like you're trying to hit that bell curve. And then you can kind of you could touch on the outliers that are in both direction, maybe ones that need a little bit more, that need to kind of get up with the rest of the team. And then there's some of your freaks that are at the end that are just really good and athletic and they can adapt well and they recover well from any sort of stimulus you throw out of them. And that's when you start getting a little bit individualized, along with like training history and any injuries and stuff that pop up. Like this is probably one of those same type of manners. Like, hey, we're gonna measure this today, and like you see someone that has like it painted on their face that like they didn't do well, and you know it's gonna affect the rest of their lift. Like instead of like take
Yeah.
it out for everybody, it's just like an easy conversation. Like when the rest of the lift starts, like, hey, like everybody has a bad day, like, but you can bounce back with the other 55 minutes of this training session. So knowing your
Yeah.
athletes is huge when that comes to that.
Yeah. I think there's also like I feel like there's maybe three groups. There's probably more that I kind of bucket them into. And like one is you have your gamers, the ones that are just like always up for competition, doesn't matter win or lose. They're just gonna try as hard as they can at everything. And those are the ones that I would let run with that if I had the means to track more stuff. And then you have like your super cerebral athletes that just overthink everything. Those are the ones that probably wouldn't provide as many opportunities to do like I just need you to give me your best today and whatever it is without putting a number on it. Like visually, I can tell that that was really hard for you and that was awesome. Just like good, we'll call it there. And then there's like kids that think they're one or the other, kids that think they're gamers, and then when they don't get what they want, they they let it get to them. So yeah, definitely picking and choosing should probably be something you think about there.
Yeah, those on the fencers that are kind of like float between the two, just in between.
Yeah.
It's definitely different, but I mean, it's a fun sport to work with. It's one that like I never got a lot of chance and opportunity to do it, but it's cool to kind of hear your perspective on it. And obviously, like working in lacrosse forever too, it's cool to see someone that comes in with maybe not as much experience with it, like just take it and run. And so far, like two programs that are relatively new, like Cincinnati hasn't been around for that long as well. And then Pitt hasn't been around for long that well. And coming from Houston, where it's like slowly starting to grow a lot more in Texas, but kind of everywhere, every stop you're going, it's getting a little bit bigger with that sport. So it'll be awesome to kind of see where the rest of kind of your career takes you if it's still within lacrosse in some aspect. But awesome, man. Well,
Yeah.
hey, like any good train session, we got to end the show with a finisher. So we already talked about conditioning a little bit today. So we're going 4 quarters, 4 questions, and we'll throw one on the back end for overtime. But you can go fast or you can take your time on any of them if you want to expand. But you ready for the first one?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Hey, first one I got for you. Biggest influence in the strength and conditioning profession.
Jeez. Just one.
I mean, you can throw another one. You could throw
I
another one in there if it ties in pretty well. I'll go with that.
I'll say Ray Ellsworth, biggest influence when it comes to the coaching side of things and developing me as a person as in the way I should carry myself as a coach and what you should stand for and live by and that side of being a coach. I think she was unbelievable to learn under at Texas A&M, and I think the secondary like follow up to that would definitely be Bo Sandoval, who came in as the director halfway through my time there in regards to the way that he approaches and views training from a completely different lens that is it's not so much completely different, but it's so much more all-encompassing than any other lens. Like some people are like a West Side powerlifting background. Some people are heavy Olympic background. Some people are like triphasic, whatever. But I think his learning from his view and the way that he approaches working with athletes from like a tennis team to a golf team to whatever it is, I think definitely opened my eyes to like broaden how I view the development of athletes from a 360-degree approach, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like it. Is there anybody else? I mean, you already said you didn't want to do one. Is there anybody else that sneaks in there too?
Oh man, I think I didn't, so obviously it didn't work with football, but I think being able to share the same weight room as the Cincinnati football team the last 3 years that I was there, and it might have been like 2.5 with the current staff that's there, being able to be just around the corner from listening to the way that their head football strength coach, Nico Palzetti, led his staff and led those athletes just being around the corner, like even just sitting there at our like fuel station right outside the weight room and just listening to how he talked pre-lift and post-lift and how he like loved on the guys. I think all of those leadership qualities are something that I definitely just tried to get something through osmosis from just being around the guy and his whole staff really. So I think if I were to round out like a top three, definitely those guys.
All right, I like it. Hey, so outside the weight room, kind of when you get a break, I know you already talked about training hell early in the morning, but when you're not training, you're not lifting, you're not coaching, like what are some of the hobbies that you kind of do to recharge, reset, or that you just kind of enjoy?
Oh man, I think definitely just getting outside, like here, and I mean it's funny how similar Pittsburgh is to Cincinnati, this the structure of the city, but getting outside, going for a walk along the river, it's just like a mind clearing thing. I'll either put on a podcast or just walk with nothing and listen to freaking jet skis go by or people honk at the goose in the street, but or geese, but just getting outside, definitely when winter comes, ever since my first time skiing in, I think it was like early high school, maybe late middle school, getting to the mountains has been something that I die to do every winter. I've turned the edge and gone to the snowboarding side of things a few years ago and got to do it last year up in California with my girlfriend, and it was a blast. So just anything outside, really, and especially in the wintertime, trying to get to a mountain.
Yeah, you're a little bit closer to it, so it's not bad. You're not going to find that too much in Texas. So, hey, if you weren't coaching, what do you think you might be doing like in alternate universe, like you have a different career path? Like what do you think it might be if it wasn't coaching right now?
It'd definitely be something in either construction or woodwork. For some reason, I've always enjoyed like I don't know about you, but Legos were just a massive thing for me growing up. And then just especially with the youth group that I grew up with, we always did something one summer that involved heavy woodwork, like building a wheelchair ramp or like even over COVID when I moved home, I went online and I think I found it on YouTube, like made a rack and a bench out of a bunch of 2x4s and some plywood and like cutting all the angles to make even a wooden bench as well. Definitely something I just enjoy the building process and then the satisfaction you get when you're done and hopefully like goes according to plan. You know, you built something that lasts and you take some pride in that. So something along those lines.
There you go. No, I like that. Hey, so if you were setting up an ideal training day for yourself, what is like music that's playing, like your favorite music playing, and then all said and done, training session's over, like what's the best post-training meal you've had?
Hmm. Um, let's see. Definitely a mix of Hardy. If you're familiar with him, he's he kind of started off as a country artist, then went kind of metal-y. Definitely the best of both worlds. Love country music, love rock music, like, and definitely Limp Bizkit as well. Been on a Limp Bizkit kick recently, but so definitely them. And I think that, man, usually it's just a standard like rice and eggs breakfast at, or like a protein shake after I lift in the morning. But recently, one of my good friends from Cincinnati, Kevin Dietz, he's got the soccer team there. He came here when they played maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we got a morning lift in, and then went and got some breakfast from this place downtown. And the hot cakes were unreal, like pretty thin pancakes, a big slab of eggs, and some bacon, and anything outside of just the rice and eggs, that's probably got to be it for the most recent non-rice and eggs breakfast that I've had.
All right, I like it. Hey, so last one I got for you for overtime. Um, what is, in your opinion, like the most important attribute of a successful coach and the most like important attribute of a successful athlete if they're different?
Yeah, I feel like I think coaches and athletes should both share similar qualities when it comes to a few different things, like being obsessed with what they're responsible for. So, like, I think for to make a successful coach, at the center of it should be like making a lasting impact and um, kind of building unwavering trust with your athletes that you're working with, that you directly impact on a daily basis. Um, and something from that that should carry on well beyond their time with you. So the relationship side of thing, you should be able to do that at an extremely high level, or else no one will work for you, no one will listen to you. And like one of my most I literally had someone from the Cincy lacrosse team text me last night, like, Mike, you'll never believe it. I just got a 31 on my yo-yo test, whatever. Like, that's what makes my day. Like, well beyond, like, I haven't worked with them in, I don't know, 5 months, something like that. But things like that. And then got a former swimmer, ironically, he's like the best swimmer, or sorry, best lifter on the team, but he's a distance swimmer. He texted me a video. He deadlifted 400 pounds the other day. Like, that and the like miss you and thank you texts are kind of how I feel like you made it. And kind of on a different level as being or to be a successful coach would be definitely providing kind of a top tier experience for the athletes when it comes to like delivering results and metrics that you can definitely control and directly change. I think if you're doing that, you should definitely be considered like a successful coach, or like I'm being successful or having success in what I'm doing. But on an athletic or on the athlete side of things, I think traits that athletes share or successful ones share would definitely be ones that are invested in kind of taking ownership in every aspect of their development and being obsessed with the process and just doing everything in their power to do what it takes to make them a better athlete or a better performer in their sport. And then like even just being committed through the ups and downs, like everyone should understand probably at least beyond their first year that process or progress is not linear. So just sticking with it even when it sucks or you're not seeing progress that you want for whatever it might be. And I think especially in the collegiate setting, one thing I've noticed is like we have 20 hours max, like as a sport organization or whatever, that we have that the coach can make mandatory for these athletes, which is not a lot of time over the course of a 7-day week. And I think it's absolutely the ones that seek out the extra work or at least the insight to help figure it out. The ones that go outside of and like beyond the 20 hours that are required of them to either get more shots, take more shots on goal, do a little extra work in the weight room if that's something that's needed for them. I think those are definitely the people that do those things are definitely the more successful athletes.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more. Those are great points for any coach and any athlete, like obviously to kind of determine success. And it's different for everybody, but those are like character traits that definitely through and through like translate over. So definitely awesome to hear and kind of hear what your thoughts are on that. So hey, like Mike, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. For anybody that's got follow-up questions for you, kind of want to pick your brain on some of the training aspects and stuff we talked today, or maybe career path and kind of how you went about everything to get you to your current point. Where can people follow you or reach out for any of those kind of questions?
Yeah. One, thanks for having me on. This is awesome. Definitely honored and humbled to be on it. And two, I think the only thing I'm really active on is Instagram, and that's Coach Steg, Steg. And if anyone wants to email me, I'll find. I think my email is listed on the school website. I'll try to get back to you on that, but definitely just Instagram.
There we go. Well, they can do some digging and actually work for it. So, but we'll link all that. We'll link all the stuff on there too, so they can find it as well and kind of reach out and see what you got going on. But I appreciate you coming on today. It's been fun to kind of pick your brain and hear more about your story. And I wish you all the best, kind of going into now like the full first year with the rest of the fall, and then leading into the competitive season for all your programs over there.
Yeah, dude, thank you. I appreciate it. And best of luck to you as well.
Appreciate it, man. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.